Hello and welcome back to Belgium in the Great War. Last time we took Strasbourg and were generally defending in the area, then went on to try and help out with the Allied offensives. This didn't go that well because even though we kept defeating enemy armies, we were worn down and had to go back to defending Strasbourg after really no successes. There we were attacked by Austria-Hungary and we've just successfully defended against them. Now we've got news of a peace deal from Germany. This is actually the second time this has happened. We were at peace with them for a very brief time earlier before they immediately resumed their war with us. Clearly they're intimidated though, they want to be at peace, and we will accept that deal because that's really helpful for us, takes a lot of pressure off of us. Using our newfound freedom, I thought I might go down to the south because Switzerland is currently in trouble. The Italians are besieging their only settlement, so I'm going to send most of my army to go and take a look at that. Thought I'd just stand around and support rather than actively going after the Italians, maybe participate in a defensive battle. But there is no time for that because at the start of the next turn, another Austro-Hungarian army has appeared. The Austro-Hungarians have actually captured that territory just to my east, so now we are once again facing the front line of the war. That peace treaty with Germany isn't going to be all that useful to us. With this we're going to have to send our troops back to defend, and handily enough the Austro-Hungarians don't attack during their turn, so we're going to have time to get back. Now then, we've researched machine gun squads and we can use this to immediately start recruiting the mysterious machine gun bunker unit. Since we saw how effective this was before, I'm just going to throw loads of them out at Brussels and wait to see what comes of that. Now I took all of the troops I had defending the Brussels area to come down and join the main army. They don't really need to defend there right now because the main threat was Germans coming from the east, and if they keep to their peace treaty that won't be happening in the near future. Therefore I put together pretty much everything we have into this one big field army, and we'll go after the Austro-Hungarian field army. The balance bar is equal, but it kind of looks like we have an advantage. A lot of the enemy troops are conscripts, and we do have a lot of troops on our side as well, plus a whole load of sacrificial militia. Even though we're attacking in this battle, because of the way the Total War AI works, we can just set up in a defensive posture and the enemy will come and attack us, because each individual unit is hard scripted to always attack if it's in range of an enemy unit, and in this case we have artillery that can range the whole field, so the enemy will just always attack us. That's great because we can use our trenches to defend our troops while the enemy come at us, but actually they did start going back after advancing for a while, and that's because I sent some cav to go around behind the enemy army. The plan here is to take out their machine gun crew which is hanging about, and their artillery. The machine guns weren't paying any attention, so that's great, my cav didn't get cut down, and we successfully make contact with the artillery crews, although we've seen these crews are actually okay in melee. The issue we have now is that the enemy general is coming in with revolver cav effectively to start shooting us up, and enemy infantry are already coming back into range. Very quickly our unit is routed, and this rear attack is over. Distracted the enemy artillery for a while, but it hasn't totally disabled them, so that was a failure. Once all that was over, the enemy resumed their original plan of coming over to face me, although you can tell by the mini-map that they're not doing so in a particularly parallel fashion. They're coming at us at a weird angle, so the left side of their army is going to clash with the right side of mine, and then when that left side loses, because I have trenches, our right will end up facing their centre as well, and just broadly speaking, our right side will end up facing the majority of the enemy force over time. But since the enemy make a pretty poor job of their attack, as usual, everything will be fine. They're running units about in front of our men trying to reform, which just gets them killed very quickly indeed. At the back we've got one unit of the citizen volunteer unit from the city. We're going to make a cheeky attack on the enemy, not that that really matters. At the front, as I said, the enemy are just getting annihilated. They're running up towards our line, getting shot the whole time. Some of them are managing some return fire, so we do take some casualties, but nothing significant. A while later our shooting manages to get the enemy general who was out there somewhere. Might even have been the artillery that got him with a nice lucky shot. Now that enemy morale penalty will help us rout them off the field a bit easier. Half of them are dead already, just have to go through the usual cycle of them routing and coming back, Then we move up to go and engage the enemy's artillery at close range, and that will finally allow us to bring the battle to an end, just as those citizen militia started to arrive in fact. Another heroic victory, put it on the pile I suppose. The enemy lost more than 10 times what we lost in that battle. So not only have we completely annihilated their besieging force, we've effectively done it for free, because after this battle we'll put our army inside the settlement and get replenishment, which will mitigate pretty much all the losses we just took, so good stuff. We're now in a position to go on an offensive again, so I'm going to move the whole army out and go over the bridge back into enemy territory. I'm going to hang around in the area where we laid an ambush before to see if we can catch any enemy armies going by. But actually we don't wait for very long, because then France come to us with this deal. They want us to go back to war with Germany. In exchange they'll tell us about nationalism and super dreadnoughts, which is less useful for us. And they want us to tell them about machine guns. That's actually a good deal for us, because France having access to machine guns should help us out in the war, so I was happy to go with the deal. Does mean though that our defensive situation is going to be more dire, with our front line all opened up again. So I'm going to bring the army back and not bother pressing the offensive. The French are attacking right now, so maybe they'll achieve something, but let's not hold out any hopes. So yes, we'll move everyone back home. I'm disbanding several units to make space in our economy to have machine guns be deployed very soon. And then, as we saw there, a random Austro-Hungarian army appears from the woods and lays siege to Strasbourg. The good news is that in the north, my fleet of machine gun bunkers is now ready, so they will shuffle down the road towards the bridge that will help us defend against any potential German attacks. With that Austro-Hungarian army, I actually let them besiege me for a turn and just stood there because I couldn't really be bothered to fight them. But as I stood there, another army appeared. The Germans are attacking in about the same area, so we really do need to do something about all this. There are the bunkers being set up on the choke point, so Brussels is now safe at least. So yes, we need to sally here and clear out this Austro-Hungarian army before the German army gets involved and causes any issues. So we've got this battle ahead of us. Looks pretty easy because we have tons of men, but annoyingly most of our troops are in the reinforcement army because I'm attacking in a stupid fashion. So we're going to start off with just a small army in the field, and we'll wait for most of our guys to show up in the west. At the start it's going to be a nice artillery battle. The enemy have a decent amount of artillery, but we did do some good damage early on. The enemy had their artillery limbered as the fight started, and we got a couple of lucky hits to damage them before they could set up. On the subject of artillery, we've got a new type of artillery slithering its way onto the field. We've got a mortar team in our reinforcement army. So this effectively is short-range artillery, but by the looks of it, it's similarly powerful to our low-quality field guns, so they'll be sliding up on the enemy's flank. While we were waiting around, the enemy did this. They sent a load of cav to charge our front line. Basically, the Napoleon Total War AI just doesn't work in this mod. Isn't really compatible with the game at all, but I guess there isn't another Total War game that's more compatible, so it's your best bet. And things like this happen. The enemy cav just run at us and get absolutely annihilated. Perhaps the AI thought there was a chance of something happening there. At the same time, my cav are getting put to work. I did the same thing I did earlier, where I sent the cav down the edge of the map to rear attack the enemy army. This time, the enemy's guns aren't so well supported, so we can get these melees going without being shot from other places. Again, we suffer from the fact that the artillery crew are okay in melee and our guys aren't actually that good, so we fought for a bit and then I fell back. But this had the intended effect, because the general kerfuffle caused the enemy to drop all of their artillery, and I don't think the AI knows how to pick artillery up, so it switches the AI on the crew to just be a melee unit and they start charging towards our front line. At about the same time, a lucky artillery strike kills the enemy general, and just broadly speaking, this battle's going really well even before it really gets started. The odd enemy units walking up to our little front line here and getting killed. It's becoming increasingly obvious that we don't even need our reinforcements to win this battle. The enemy are fully prepared to throw it away themselves. So yes, just skipping to the end here basically. The enemy dithered about in the centre as we gradually moved up on their flank with a firing line and killed the men that they were using to try and attack our original position. and their army was wiped out. So that's going to be another heroic victory for us, and I think another case where we killed more than 10 times the amount we lost. Overall, a sterling victory. So the siege is lifted. Austria-Hungary's fates have not been very good here in Strasbourg. Their army wanders off, and now we could go and attack the German army immediately, but I just didn't really want to. We can wait around and replenish our losses and see what they do. Their army is not that good, so they're not going to do that much to us, and as I pretty much expected, they and the surviving Austro-Hungarians moved to the west to just sit in the exterior buildings. That mine, by the way, isn't even built, so them sitting there doesn't actually do anything. I thought for a second we may be able to attack them and get the French army to reinforce. They're almost in range, but it turns out they're not, pretty much. This doesn't make much difference though, because the German army retreats when we get close to them. They retreat into France, in fact, and contrary to my expectations, the French army does actually bother to turn around and go and take them out during the French turn. So there we go, some teamwork there. We have defended our border, and hopefully France will feel a little bit more motivated to bother participating in the war, now that some of it has taken part on their soil. Next I dealt with the survivors from the Austro-Hungarian army. Not much trouble there, just auto-resolve them to death. There's some bad news nearby though. Looks like Switzerland has been conquered by the Italians. So now we have another front. Now Strasbourg can be attacked from 3 sides. Defending this area is getting more and more annoying for us, yet we must, because we are the ones fighting the Great War right now. It's all up to us for some reason. What I decided to do was split off a sizable chunk of the army to go south and potentially recapture Switzerland to close up that front, leaving behind a few units who should be able to defend the crossing points near Strasbourg on their own. In the north, my machine gun bunker fleet hasn't seen much action, so I thought I'll move it up towards the front line to try and draw the enemy out. We don't want to get too close because the enemy might trigger an interception battle, and we do need the enemy to be attacking us. We want to defend because most of our units can't move. The enemy have a machine gun bunker of their own in their army, so that could be troublesome if we have to fight it with their own machine gun bunkers. And nearby, as an aside, look at this guy. He appears to have drawn some glasses on his face and he feels very clever about the whole situation. Guess he's coming over to steal our machine gun technology. Now our army going to the Italian front is near enough to attack, but we don't want to attack really. The enemy have the advantage here, there's a full stack in there. So I'm going to try and ambush here. We can ambush on the road to our own territory. So if they do feel like coming on in to attack Strasbourg, we may be able to stop them. Can't see much of their force, but we know it is very big. This also inspired me to set an ambush with our machine gun bunkers. For the same reason, that big army might just walk past and get ambushed. As it happens, we do get an ambush, but not the one I was looking for. Just one unit was coming over to enter our territory by the looks of things. It's some cav, and they're unlikely to beat all of our machine gun bunkers. So I thought, well, we'll auto-resolve that. However, now we've got an issue. For some reason my bunkers aren't here anymore, and indeed, after the fight's over I can confirm it. We, quote-unquote, lost all of our machine gun bunkers in that fight. It seems that machine gun bunkers are deleted by auto-resolves or something, so it seemed. With this I thought, this is too outrageous to bear, let's go back to the auto-save at the start of the end turn sequence. Just like before, the cavalry came to attack, but this time we're going to have to manually resolve it to see if this will resolve the situation correctly. So we start a battle. I've got our machine gun bunkers all over the field around the enemy cav, and because of the hilly terrain, most of them aren't really doing anything. They're pounding away at the ground with little achieved, or nothing achieved to be specific. The enemy cav are lancers, so if they want to take us out, they have to come and stab the bunkers. The AI seems a little bit smart though. It's charging its men around and they're screaming as if it's giving them attack orders, but it is resisting the temptation to go into range of our bunkers. They're just kind of hanging around where they are. This went on for a long time until I discovered a secret to the machine gun bunker. I noticed that the range on these things seems to be a lot lower than it was when the AI was using them against me, and I discovered why. It's because the bunkers can attack ground, and attack ground appears to far exceed its regular effective range. So we can attack ground on the enemy cav with one of the bunkers that can actually see them, and the shots go way out of their range and hit the enemy. The AI probably doesn't think it's in range, so it can't really react to this, meaning it just stands there gradually dying and not knowing why, and that means we're going to win this battle. A nice discovery. Looks like machine gun bunkers have another OP quality. They're hard to kill, they can shoot out the back of themselves, and they can exceed their own range. Heroic victory, and that's the end of that, but we still don't have the bunkers after the battle. It seems that bunkers are a one-use thing. They are automatically deleted after you use them, I guess to represent the fact they're supposed to be immobile. So that means our defences near Brussels are decimated. We've got pretty much nothing left. We'll have to quickly whip together a new force to defend that crossing before the Germans realise what's going on. Now to the south, trouble is brewing. A German army has marched into our territory, and there's another one nearby that could be following. And also I was aware that there was a third German army somewhere that I'd seen moving about, and currently it's hidden basically just behind where that first German army is. So I didn't want to go on the offensive. I had to wait for the enemy to get everything out in the open, and as I did, the Italians finally made that attack from the south with 1.5 stacks, one of which was hidden there in the forest to our south, and the bigger army lays siege to Strasbourg. As for the Germans, their forces start to appear. Two armies march across our territory, apparently ignoring Strasbourg. They're determined to go for the buildings outside the town, which is fine by me, since that means the Italians are on their own. They've got a decent army here, and really we're going to have no choice but to try and break out and kill them. In the north, we can see multiple armies probably getting ready to attack us, so yes, we do need to get an army together here as soon as possible. And just there you might have spotted me building an airfield. We have now invented airplanes. I think we're just going to be using them for reconnaissance, so at some point we'll get an agent type thing that will allow us to finally scout beyond the front line and see what's going on, because just being randomly attacked by enemies we didn't know about has been a problem throughout this campaign. Now down with the Italy situation, it's actually worse than I thought, because when I sally to attack them, somehow that German army to the northwest is in reinforcement range of the Italian one, so we have to fight them both at the same time. That balance bar is pretty even, but I was like, no it isn't. Tried to decline the attack, but you're not allowed for some reason. Not really sure what the rules about that are, but since I've tried to sally, I can't call off the idea now that I know what the battle will be. So we have to fight this one. It's a pretty large affair, so we'll cover this next time, but I will just show you to start with what the map looked like. We had the enemy's deployment zone to our south, and our deployment zone is mostly covering this town, and we know the enemy are probably going to be coming from somewhere along the north edge as well, so we have to fight in multiple directions. But with all these streets and buildings, we can potentially set up something creative to deal with that problem, so come back next time to see how it all goes.